Hi, I'm Kelly Paletta, Director of Sales and Marketing at eXp Technical. This is a pre-recorded message. Our event's going to begin in just a minute, but I wanted to talk about a topic that's kind of a tangent to our subject today, and that's cybersecurity and risk. AI is changing the technology landscape, it's changing business operations, and in an era of change comes a whole new level and new kinds of threats. And that might make you very anxious. And if it does, one, you're not alone. And you're not unreasonable. You should be concerned about these things. But that's why we've created a new course at eXp Academy. It's called AI at Work, a practical guide to cybersecurity for non-technical business leaders. That's a lot to say, but it's intended to give you a solid footing in this new era. It looks at ways that your employees might be using AI right now, speaks to internal controls that you can implement to keep sensitive data secure, talks about how to write policies so employees know what to expect and how they should act. It looks at external threats and ways to protect your organization from the bad guys outside your organization. It even gets into ethical concerns about plagiarism and attribution, other things of that nature. So it's available to you at eXp Academy. That's academy.exptechnical.com. Course is called AI at Work, a practical guide to cybersecurity. Oh, and maybe best of all, it's completely free. Everyone in Washington State could take this course and eXp Technical would not receive a dime for it. We do this, we make this information available because we think it's that important. We want this information to get out there. So check it out when you get a chance. If you appreciate the course, share it with your friends too, and together we can make the region more secure. Thanks. Our event will start in just a minute here, and I will see you there. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kelly Paletta, Director of Sales and Marketing here at eXp Technical. Welcome to our webinar. Today, we're going to be discussing putting AI to work in your business. Our guest today is Jenny Moshea. I'll introduce her in just a minute here. But beforehand, I have a couple of brief announcements before we get started. And let me see, I've got a little presentation that gives us an outline here. So bear with me here. We'll jump to this. Now, if I've done it right, you should see an overview here. So just wanted to give a little bit of an overview and an agenda so people understand or can see where we're headed here. There is an agenda for today's discussion. If you've attended these events in the past, you know that sometimes they are very structured and follow, there's a lot of PowerPoint slides and prepared material. Other times they're more conversational. I think this one's going to be a little bit in between. Jenny has some prepared material, and we'll go back and forth with a lot of Q&A as well. And what that means, the good news to you is that you can participate as well. If you have questions, you can ask them via the chat or via the Q&A feature in Zoom. They should be at the bottom of your screen here. And the difference between the two is if you submit a question via Q&A, it's somewhat private. It will just go to myself as the moderator and Jenny, whereas if you submit a question via chat, everyone in attendance can see it. And we've got about 100 people registered for this event, so be careful what you share in the chat. The Q&A is a little bit more private, a little bit more confidential. One question that comes up every time we host one of these events is this event being recorded? Yes, in fact, it is. Usually takes me about a week before I make that available. I like to do a little bit of post-processing of the transcript, but you will get an email from me with links to video and to a transcript. We'll post it at eXp Academy, on our website, in our blog, on YouTube. So it will be available, and I'm sure there are going to be those moments that you want to rewind and revisit. And hopefully you want to share it with your friends and your colleagues as well. So yes, indeed, that will be available to you. And then our structure is that I'll introduce Jenny. We've got a couple of poll questions lined up. Don't know if we'll get to those or not, but Jenny has some material prepared, and that's the heart of our conversation, which is putting AI to work in your business. So probably a good time for me to introduce Jenny to you all. Some of you may know her because um, she works or used to work in the same industry as a lot of our clients, and I even have heard of at least one person in attendance that knows both of us somehow. So there are probably others as well. But if you don't know Jenny, she is currently an executive AI advisor for her firm Kinetic Shift. I think she has some new information about her career path that was just publicly announced an hour ago. Um, she, in the past, has been an advisor to some corporations in the region that are household names. I will leave them nameless for now. But where I first started following her was that when I realized or when I noticed that she was a CIO at a prominent construction firm here in the Pacific Northwest, one that changes the skyline and the landscape of our cities here. And for that reason, her role as a CIO and in the industry where we have a lot of clients, it seemed like I should be following her on LinkedIn. And so that's, Jenny, I don't know if you know that, but that's where I first came in contact with you.
I
But
did.
so having said all of that, Jenny, welcome to our webinar. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Oh, it's a thrill to be here, Kelly. And I know we've been talking about this back and forth for several months now, and so it's fun to actually see it come to life.
Yeah, I know it feels like forever, but here we are. So
Here we
I
are.
wondered, do you have anything else to share? I kind of gave a bullet point list of your bio, and I teased that there's a new announcement. Do you have any
Oh, yeah.
background or any other information that you care to
Well,
share?
I continue to, as a former CIO, I get tapped a lot as an advisor, especially in the AI space now, for the AEC industry and beyond. And so actually, I have joined Rapid Canvas as an AI growth advisor. What's different about Rapid Canvas is it's an agentic AI platform plus data science team. So we can talk more about that later, but I love, I've just joined that partnership. I've been collaborating with them for many months. And so it's exciting for me to bring it to life and be able to help support enterprises both above 100 employees and below. So,
Awesome. Well, and I know you have some information prepared, but
yeah.
before you do, I wanted to ask a couple of quick poll questions of our audience.
Yes. Yes.
And let me see, let me launch one of them. We'll see if this works here. So if I did it right, yeah, it looks like it's showing up. So initially, I wanted to ask a question of our audience members about their individual familiarity and comfort level with AI. There's four questions there, four levels, whether you use AI daily, regularly, if you consider yourself competent, or this is new. This kind of goes back to that comic that I shared in the first slide, which, by the way, I got from one of our attendees, and I credited it in the slide. But it seems relevant that there are a lot of people these days that are like, well, I need to be using AI. I feel like I'm behind. I'm there's this new technology that I don't know what it can do. And also, but I don't know how I'm going to apply it. And that's going to be part of our conversation
Yeah.
today. So if I'm looking at the poll answers, I think I can end the poll here now. And I have one other question, then I'll set you loose, Jenny. But
I have a question too. So this is good.
okay, so let's see if I end the poll. I'm going to share results, but from what I see, there's a broad cross section.
Yep.
It's
Look at the
almost
mix.
a quarter, a quarter, a quarter, but
Almost.
between people that never use AI versus people that use it regularly and often. Let's see. I wanted to share one other poll question, and this is
Yeah, I see
more,
that a lot. Those answers reflect a lot of other surveys I've seen. So
and
you're
let's
all
see.
right in there.
Yeah, and it's something that I'm not surprised. I expected that from this audience, um, because I talk to them every day, and I
Yeah.
hear that when I speak to them. So the next question speaks to I'm asking people to answer on their organization's adoption of AI. Whether it's something that is fully implemented, yeah, we're as an organization, we're using it every day, or we haven't really started, we're just exploring. I suspect a lot of people in this session are um, early in their AI journey. And it looks like the results are speaking to that too. I'm going to end the poll and I'll give you three. two, last chance to respond, one. Okay, I'm going to end and share that. One more? Nope. Okay. So we'll share the results here. And what I see is that nearly everybody is in the category of haven't started yet or just experimenting with small pilots or individual tools. I'm going to stop sharing that so we can see each other. So it seems like people in attendance today are early in their journey in AI adoption. And I wanted to get that out of the way so that it might
Yeah.
influence our conversation as we go. I've been speaking a lot. Jenny, I know you came to this event with a little bit of information prepared. Perhaps I should yield the stage to you. Do you want to pull up some of the information that you had prepared for our audience here?
A little, if first, though, I'd love to ask if people
Oh, sure.
can somehow respond to this question, but I would love to
Oh,
know,
sure. Go. Yeah, go ahead.
just toss in how many employees you have at your organization. Is it you, one as a solopreneur, or do you have hundreds? I would love to just get some idea of numbers because we can fly at different altitudes throughout this conversation and that will help. So I don't know if you'll see in the chat. Maybe we can do chat. Yeah.
Yes. So I see it in the Q&A
Yeah.
and perhaps in the
Wherever you
chat.
want to toss it. Well,
So I see one response that says 114 employees,
yeah.
25 employees. One person says, I'm the only person in my
Yeah.
organization using AI.
Okay,
Let's
perfect.
see.
This is what I expected.
A
Okay.
lot, 25,
Oh,
4,
chat's
under
disabled.
10,
Okay.
4, 50, 30, 6, 17. I don't
Gotcha.
see, oh,
I
chat
see it. Chat disabled.
500.
Well,
Yeah, you can see the responses too. So
yeah.
there's a broad cross section there. I don't see any that are over 1,000. I don't see many that are over 100, but a lot that are in the 30 or so range.
Okay. Well, let
Uno.
me, yeah, I think that's
I
perfect.
love
And
that.
that's what I expected. So this is great. This is where it's fun. It's fun and there's a lot you can do to just accelerate with AI. So yeah, do we want to jump in or what were you?
I think because I know you had some information prepared
Yeah,
that you wanted to share that kind of opens up
I
people's minds to things that might be available. I have a long list of questions too that I run past, but I don't want to step over the information that you came here prepared to present.
Well, I have a little fun things I like to share and just orient people on the same page. We've got quite a mix of organizations. So I just kind of want to show I like this I have a video or you know, I think oh geez, of course I skipped, but I love this little video that it I will share this and hopefully you can hear. So I'm going to play this. It's 90 seconds. It's a trailer for a short film that was created entirely by Gen AI. And bear with me, it's worth the 90 seconds.
Echo Hunter is a fully Gen AI film built with the cutting edge tools of Arcana Labs. I'm Kavin the Kid, director of Echo Hunter and co founder of Phantom X. We teamed up with Arcana Labs to fuse next gen tech with an amazing cast of SAG actors, pushing the future of filmmaking into now.
It's been too long.
Tell me, does a corpse ever consider the purpose of its actions?
The potential is limitless, is the crazy thing.
But with this technology and with AI and with the creatives still being able to use the writers and the directors, everybody still gets to work, but the barrier for entry is lowered substantially. I think that's really cool.
We're very excited about Echo Hunter, and we're very excited about the power of Arcana AI and its tools and the creators who use them.
So the reason I share that, can you all still hear me?
Yes.
The reason I share this is because it's a 22-minute short film. And typically a film of that caliber and a level would have taken 12 months. And they built this in 3 months. And so this was presented on an AI stage recently at a big AI conference. And they announced that if they were to remake it now, a few months later, it would only take 4 days. So
Wow.
this is how fast things are accelerating. And that's why I think, even between the time, Kelly, that you and I spoke and now actually talking, like things are changing fast. And so I love that people have jumped into this. And I think it's there's an example of how we've seen other trends. And if any of you think back to the smartphone in 2007, I don't know if you all stood in line like I did, but think about how we didn't really fully understand the power of a smartphone and having a computer in our pocket. And now we spend 28% more of our waking time on this device that helps us run our day. And so I just kind of like to bring us back to, we've been through this before. We've been through some of these big changes before. And here's a little chart that I think is fascinating, and just seeing how fast AI adoption is like accelerating beyond what we've seen in the past, with going from, remember a landline subscription or internet, moving to the internet and then mobile phones. It's just going bonkers. And you can see, we've all heard the news stories about ChatGPT getting to 1 million users in 5 days. And so this is kind of the pace that I think we're all feeling. And so I appreciate folks wanting to catch up. And so just a
Right.
couple more. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just said right. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
That I gave a presentation a month ago and started with the same thing about the adoption cycle for AI. It's like the fastest technology adoption in history.
In
Took a
history.
hundred years before 100 million people had benefited from the steam engine. Took two
Right.
months before 100 million people were subscribed to ChatGPT. They were at 1 million in 5 days. So you're right. It's the adoption curve is very, very steep and continues to be for sure.
Yeah, and I'll just throw a couple of more things. I think everybody, whether or not you realize it, you're using AI, you've been using AI in the apps you use to do your everyday. And I started plopping icons on here and just had to stop because it's a bounty of apps that we use. And I was like, at one point, it was the order of my day. I was like, well, I get a Starbucks, I go somewhere in traffic, I make sure I do my Duolingo because I'm keeping up with my kids, and then so anyway, all these apps that you may be familiar with are powered by AI. And so I just like to give this tip. Like, I give free tips all the time, but okay, if you have not done anything with AI, I'm just gonna the number one thing I would say you do. And if you already use a large language model, an LLM, or a ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, you had Midjourney on there, Claude, any of
Can,
those
can
LMs, you
I
could,
can I
yeah,
interject?
yes.
Right now, I still see the slide in your presentation that has the video. Have you moved on?
Oh,
You've talked about.
I have. Stop share, my bad.
Okay,
Oh,
I
I
did.
love it when technology does that, right?
I know.
All right, let's try that again. Are you seeing this?
Give it a second to catch up.
Okay. So
Yes,
you didn't see
yes.
any, do you see these apps?
Did not see those.
Okay, sorry.
Look at
Yeah,
them
that's
all.
my graph and everything. Okay. So these were the apps I was showing and talking about everyday AI, from Duolingo to Gmail to your photos to LinkedIn to Canva to Starbucks. So, but and you're still tracking with me now, starter tips?
Yes,
Okay.
indeed.
So if regardless of what chat you use or model you use, they all have similar capabilities. And what I want you to do is, ideally, if you're using it for business at all, you're in the paid version. $20 a month is worth it because you get a little bit more security. Your data doesn't have to be shared out, or you can turn that off now. Almost all of them, you can turn off the ability to share. So I encourage you to go into your settings. You want to turn off, if you're doing private things, you want, or anything sensitive. Yeah, we'll just disclaimer that you never want to put anything sensitive. It'd be like posting anything on a public billboard. So be careful about what you put into ChatGPT. But as far as an assistant and soundboard for ideas and things. I just want to encourage you to go in and use the personalization. Go into the settings. You can choose your preference, whether or not you share your information with the larger ecosystem in the model. And another thing is to share your personalization. How do you want I use ChatGPT most of the time because it's a great generalist. And I have a lot of general things. If I was doing a lot of writing, I would probably use Claude. If I was doing a lot of research, I would probably use Perplexity. But those are examples that all of these models can be used for different things. But I encourage you to use the paid version if you can. You can do a lot with the free version, but you won't get the speed, you won't get the responsiveness, and you won't get the full possibilities. So personalize with custom instructions, and then also highly to hold the context of whatever you're saying, I encourage you to create a project, a folder. It's basically a folder, and you start chats out of those folders, which holds the context. So, for example, when I was working on a project for my brother for his business, I didn't want it to mix with my questions about college campus tours for my kids' spring break. And so I create a folder for each kind of category of what I'm talking about. So those are just hot tips. And just so we all orient, I think it's important for people to know you're probably hearing more in the news about agentic AI, agents. There's a lot of mixed information, but you can think of ChatGPT and what I think is the starter AI app for most of us as really conversational intelligence. You're interacting with it, it responds to you, but it only responds to you if you tell it, if you ask it something or tell it something or prompt it. What's new about agentic AI is that it's more broad. It's an operational intelligence, and you can set the goals of an agent and it will go and plan and act on your behalf. And so it can report back. But I'd love to see if there's any questions bubbling up yet.
I have a question that's somewhere
Yeah.
in between here because I think this will come up in our conversation because I've heard you refer to this, and maybe it's later in your presentation. But right now, you're making the distinction between generative AI, like
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT and these other tools, and agentic AI, which can act independently and make decisions. And
Right.
but you also talk about custom GPTs. And can you
Yes.
explain that, or am I one slide ahead of you here? Can you
No.
speak to that a little bit?
No, you're right. Custom GPTs, and I showed a little bit about that in here. You can also create your own custom GPTs. So, and that's where I think you can also change the mode if you're in an LLM, a large language model like ChatGPT, you can create your own GPT. And so it'll say agent mode sometimes, but that's not to be confused with creating an agent. We'll get to that a little bit later. But GPTs are like, I think of it like a PhD student working for my company in a specific area. So, for example, a lot of companies, part of their org chart now is an AI CFO or an AI COO, and it's an agent as part of their organizational chart. And you can create these GPT agents. I know there's many agents, but a GPT agent to focus just on that category of information. It's like a folder, but uh more interactive. So a folder is like the container, the project is the container, but then the GPT is you're training it to just focus on a specific type of information. So for example, we often have a director of HR at a company, but you don't ask your director of HR to also manage the finance team. And so you want agents to be very discreet and separate and create them for their bespoke process and function.
Mhm.
And so that's a little bit about GPTs. We could literally talk about this all day.
Right, right. I love that analogy though, and I've heard something similar. I think even Dave Nelson, who was a former presenter in this series, he said something along the lines of Chat GPT or just AI in general is like your super smart intern. Or I've heard other
Yes.
people say it's like an intern that has a PhD in everything.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very good at surfacing information. It's read every Washington state law on HR or on accounting, but it doesn't have any context. It doesn't know your corporate culture. It doesn't know your voice, your tone. It
Right.
doesn't know what's important to you or to your business. So it doesn't really know. It's kind of unfocused in that way. But it has access to and has read practically everything that's available.
Right. And that's why creating your own GPT narrows that focus and you can teach it your tone of writing, your voice. I love Claude for that reason. All of these. You can upload your own writing, give it examples of your writing, give it examples of your LinkedIn posts or your social media and help it learn your style. And so that's also a thing I recommend people do is if you're struggling wherever, what can it do? Or even after today's conversation and you're like, I don't know where to start, just ask your ChatGPT to help you. Like I recently did something way outside of my comfort zone to help a family member and I didn't know where to start. And so I was like, how would I do this? And ChatGPT gave me specific steps. And then if I don't know how to write a good prompt, sometimes I struggle with good prompts because garbage in, garbage out. If you give it nothing, it like a we're so used to a command like in a Google search that it's hard for certain generations of people, namely, I would say, to ask a really good prompt and clarify and give it more information. And so I will often use ChatGPT to help me write a better prompt. And then I'll say, well, can you make it even better? And can you make it better? Or interview me for this process and have it interview you and ask you questions to clarify and draw out what you're trying to accomplish. So use it as a sidekick. I pretend like it's my little assistant sitting next to me and I'm just using it as a soundboard to create something different and new.
And forgive me for interjecting it, and I don't want
Yeah.
to get you off track from your
I'm,
prepared
this
material.
is what we're for.
But there are a couple of pearls of wisdom in there. One is that using AI to help you improve your prompts, and you can do that with competing AI tools as well. You
Yep.
can take a
Yep.
chat,
Yep.
you've submitted a prompt into Chat GPT, you're not getting the results that you want. You could go into Microsoft Copilot and say, why am I not getting the answers I want? How can
Yep.
I improve this prompt? And the other thing too is that people often, and you're talking about this, people often look at AI as what it produces, but I find, and it sounds like you're saying the same thing, I'm often using it as a coach um,
Yes.
to help me. Like, for example, I won't go into the details, but had a fairly complex integration between several different software applications that I use. And I don't know, I had never used Zapier before that. And I wasn't great
Mm.
at
Hmm.
HubSpot and some of the other things that I was using for integration. So I just started from there and said,
Yeah.
hey, this is what I want to do. These are the tools that I have available.
Yeah.
What's the most efficient workflow to get all of these different tools? And I had three or four of them communicating together in this fairly complex workflow. And so in that case, the AI wasn't really producing the results.
Hmm.
But it had
Guiding.
read every user's manual
Right.
on HubSpot and PhoneBurner and SendSpark and all the other tools that I was using, so it could teach me um, how to get those things working and playing well together. And one other thing that I'll add,
Yeah.
because I love
Yeah.
this, was the ability to copy and paste my screen share. I would copy and paste screenshots or screen captures when I got stuck. And I
Hmm.
think this is relatively new to more recent versions of AI, but it can read the text that is just in an image. And so it could look at my screen capture from HubSpot and say, oh, you're using this version. You don't have
Yes.
that feature enabled, so you have to work around it this way, which
Exactly.
is like, again, like having a genius coach looking over your shoulder that can tell you, no, click here, dummy.
Yep, I did the same thing, but I didn't even think to use screenshots. That's brilliant. I just said I don't see that option on my screen, and it would say, "Oh, you must be in a different version of blah blah blah."
Oh,
So
I
I
love the
encourage, especially
screenshots.
especially all you entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or small company or under 20 employees, under 5, you can use things like Kelly mentioned Zapier. That's a little pricier than you could use Make or other tools, but ask ChatGPT, how would I do this thing? And just talk to it like a friend that you trust for advice and wisdom. And then if it just gives you, sometimes depending on the version you're on, if you're not on a paid version, it has a tendency to do the hallucination thing we've heard about so much. But the more paid you are, especially for groups that are in enterprise or team versions of these tools, the hallucination gets much reduced. So I would encourage you to leverage that or know it's possible. There's a level of companies like that I'm part of are going towards zero hallucination because the data has to be accurate and absolute.
So that leads to, I think, one aspect of a phrase that we hear often, and that is human in the loop or human in the
Yes.
process. So, one way to check for hallucinations is to, well, for AI tools to provide citations, but another, do you want to speak to having a human in the loop and humans
Yes.
involved in the process?
I think absolutely the human judgment and the subject matter expert and expertise is critical to using AI effectively. You need to have an approver or reviewer in your workflow. You do that today, right? You just do it with all humans. So if you're adding an AI piece of that workflow, that work still needs to be reviewed. Think of it like an intern wants to do a good job, but sometimes they need guidance and they need to be redirected. And so you are still in control. And you're creating very small areas of focus with the AI in there. And so human in the loop is one thing, but now with other platforms like Rapid Canvas and some of these AI tools and the industry tools, like Kaya AI and trunk tools and trunk text, there are it is expert in the loop that's part of this process. So you're adding the human business person in the loop plus the data science or expert to know that the data is quality or not, because a lot of companies do not have the luxury of a big technical team, and that's why companies like EXP exist to help support, right? And so
Sure.
a lot of most folks don't have data scientists on their payroll. And so,
So
yeah.
I'm going to interject with one question
Yes.
because it's really relevant to what you're saying too. So a question that came up in the Q&A here, and this speaks to expert in the loop. Somebody asked about, I'm summarizing and I'm skimming, but using AI, and I frankly I think there's some legitimacy to this, but using AI as a counselor or for medical
Mm,
advice. And
yeah.
what I would say, and maybe you can amplify this, but a couple of things. One, this goes back to what you said about privacy and confidentiality. My understanding is that there are products that are specifically built for that purpose. Your little AI psychotherapist
Yeah.
that follow that are regulated by HIPAA and follow that
Right.
have those controls about sensitivity. But the other thing too is that you definitely want, well, I would remain very concerned about my mental health information and entering that
Yeah.
into an artificial intelligence chat session if I don't know where that data is saved, where it's
Yes.
stored, where it may
Yes.
exist in the future. And so I'm going to shut up in a second here, but
I agree.
couple of good reasons to have an
Yeah.
expert in the loop. One is that with an expert in the room, what happens in that room or is said in that room might stay in that room. And also, we're still in the early stages of AI, and it might not give the best medical or mental health information as well. So
Right.
I
No, that,
personally, I think it's valid. I think there could be valid psychoanalytic applications and psychotherapy and mental health counseling, but
yeah.
I think we want to be aware. I'm sorry, I'm talking over you, and you're the
No, I
expert
think
here.
we're both excited to answer this. I think I will not ever say I'm not an expert in that area of domain expertise. However, from what I think we're seeing is that yes, it is trained on the academia of that therapy or that area of focus, but it does not have the lived experience that a human therapist has. It does not have the experience of real world. And so I would encourage people to make sure they know where their information's going. If it's in a generic context and you can sanity check it with a professional, then that might be a good blend. But make sure it's a closed system that you're not just giving it all away. Yeah, I agree, Kelly.
Okay. I'm going to go to another question from our
Yeah,
Q&A here.
that's why we're here. Let's do that.
So this speaks to the difference between different products that are available, like a paid version of ChatGPT, and there are levels too, but
Yeah,
that versus Microsoft Copilot.
right.
And I wonder if you have some thoughts on security controls in one product versus another. If you don't, I'm sure I kind of do, but I want to hear from you if you have any thoughts on that about which might be more secure or which might be more appropriate for a small business.
Uh, yeah, Copilot is broad and it's usually implemented at an enterprise level. And so your technical team or people in charge of putting in the tool should be able to put some guardrails on it as to what it has access to. And so, yeah, I mean, all tools, I mean, there's flavors of different things I would use ChatGPT for versus Copilot, depending on what the subject is, but I would say at least, encouraging people, if you have an enterprise tool like Copilot, I use that for anything business or interactive. If you're doing something personal, like recently I was trying to figure out the best route for our spring break tour and trying to hit the tours, and I knew I could spend, and then hotels and kid friendly, a lot of personal things or fun, but also just as an assistant to think through business topics. But I would encourage people to stick, I mean, again, you're going to use more than the average person is using on average about 5 different tools to do
Mhm.
day-to-day things. So it's not a silver bullet.
And I tend to agree and affirm that just from my own experience. Again, I'm just a sales guy at EXP and not the expert, but um, Copilot, the good news and the bad news about Copilot is that it has access to everything in your Microsoft tenant, SharePoint and OneDrive and all of these resources. And as you expertly mentioned, your IT team can put proper
Yeah,
access controls around all that information. So in that sense, you can be kind of working in an environment that has controls built into it. That's the good news. The bad news is if those controls aren't in place, you might also be giving your intern access to HR data or
right.
because the
Payroll.
bad news
Yeah,
is it has access to all of your all of the information in your Microsoft
right.
tenant.
And that's a good reminder that we still need to be good humans and good citizens of our information and data and files. Like even before Copilot, we had to be responsible employees or humans of the company and preserve the company information and intellectual property. So that doesn't change with AI. It just goes faster. And so making sure you have the right governance in place, compliance, and you have put all the controls in. I think also, Kelly, your EXP Academy, the latest training you have with the cybersecurity for business leaders is super important for people to listen to because, yes, the bad actors are acting badly still. They can do it faster, and we can respond faster also, but it doesn't go away.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. So maybe not everyone was in the waiting room and saw the previews, the video that showed before the session started, but I want to give my own plug for that too, just because we feel like this is really important information that we want everyone to have access to. And that is that at EXP Technical, one of our values is share knowledge, share success. And we're really concerned about this genie that's out of the bottle now and ways that sensitive data can get outside of your control. And we also know that a lot of business leaders are really concerned about that too. And so we created a
Mhm.
course that's available for free at EXP Academy. And it's called AI at Work. It's practical cybersecurity recommendations for non-technical business leaders. And it speaks to compliance, governance. It talks to ethical concerns like plagiarism and attribution. And it gives you practical steps like how to begin writing policies. And a lot of those topics are raised in that course, and also there's a journey in that course too. There are resources that you can use to start implementing those things too. It's not just
Yeah.
a course that's designed to scare the hell out of you and then leave you on your own to fend for yourself. So thank you for mentioning that, but we feel pretty
Yes.
strongly about it. We want to get that information out there
Yes.
because
Get the word out.
we're Team Seattle and Team Pacific Northwest, and we
Yeah.
want our clients and our neighbors to be interacting securely with AI. I'm talking over you and I shouldn't be. So
Yeah.
um eh, and I kind of, oh, so here's one, just a basic definition. Can you explain AI hallucination.
Oh, yeah. So it's when the tool literally makes something up. I had this happen even yesterday on a paid version. It came up with the word Vespers. And I'm like, I haven't mentioned Vespers. I haven't given you the word Vesper. Like, what does that even mean? And it's like this old reference, but it just popped it into the response without any guidance. So sometimes that's why you still have to be human smart. It is not replacing humans by any means. It is elevating, expanding, and boosting us. I think you still have to look at everything it produces and just
So
sanity check. So
AI is incentivized to be an answering machine, and when it can't
yes,
find an answer, sometimes it can make them
it will
up. We've
fill
seen
in the blanks.
famous cases of that where people have
Yeah,
embarrassed themselves by citing legal precedent that
that
didn't
didn't
exist or
exist.
medical reports that don't
Right.
actually exist. That goes back to human in the loop,
Yes.
right? We want to
And
review those
if
things.
you don't know, because younger folks ask me this all the time, when I speak at startup events, if you are not experienced in the world, or you haven't had enough cycles around the sun, you may not know the answer. And so one way to handle that is to put the answer into another chat bot or chat GPT or another GPT to say, can you verify this? And you also ask it all the time, where are the sources? Verify the sources, because if it can't point to sources or sources that are not real, because you should be able to validate those. You got to keep asking, just like you would ask a child or a friend, like, hey, that sounds a little off, where did you get that information? So in the era of some fake news, you really have to trust but verify.
That terrifies me because I have seen studies on people in silos creating disinformation machines and how successful they were at spreading disinformation. Um,
Yeah.
and and if you're talking about an issue that's like hotly contested, and we're not going to talk about these things, but I'll just raise the issue of like vaccine effectiveness or those sorts of topics. There's a lot of information on both sides, and AI might give equal weight uh, to the noise
Misinformation.
as much
Yeah.
as to the signal. Um,
Yeah, and I
so it,
think,
oh, go ahead.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Also, just it you have to we're trusting and we're learning, but also it is not any different than the rumor mill in the high school or middle school. There was a rumor mill. It's just a lot faster now, and it can spread like fire. So
Indeed. So here's one that speaks to me. Is there a way to get around the tendency of AI to flatter users in order to get information from
yes.
it on your level of expertise in prompt engineering? I hate
Yes.
that. Okay,
Yes,
go on.
that's why I went to that number one thing I showed you, which was the black slide of go into your settings and go to the personalization. And you can tell it, be direct. You can even say, give me New York Bronx style. Like be direct. Do not sugarcoat it. Do not give me flattery. And you can change the way it responds to you.
Oh, I, I,
Yes.
I haven't done that, but I am continually irritated by that. What an
Yeah.
excellent question, or what that's
Yes. That's
outstanding way of
perfect.
thinking. Yeah,
Yes. Very
uh,
cheery.
I
You
want
can
it to tell
also
me.
prompt it to, oh, sorry. You
Oh,
can prompt it
go
once
ahead.
in a while to say, based on what you know about me, give me some honest feedback about what you see me in accomplishing my goals, or what do I need to work on? And it could be real straight with you and just shine some light on some dark spots you might have, but
Right.
it's all there.
So I want to get to we're nibbling around the edges, and I want to be sure
Yes.
that we don't ignore the main course here, and that is AI implementation in organizations, in particularly in small businesses. And you've
Mm-hmm.
talked about things like personalization and things that and using
Yeah.
one GPT to validate or the information that another is giving, and a lot of things like
Right.
that. But for the business leaders that are thinking, hey, there's this new tool, and I've seen that it
Yeah.
can create video quickly, and I've seen that it can get research answers quickly, but I don't know how to use it to amplify my efforts in my business.
Right.
Where does that
Right.
person start? What should
Where do
they
you
be looking at?
start? I'm so glad you asked. Well, can you all see this? Like my questions?
It's coming up. Oh, here we go.
These are things to look for. And I follow the pain. So like where do you get stuck? What do you not look forward to doing every day? Where do you find drudgery in your everyday? And then, where in your processes or workflows do you have to do repetitive tasks that not the best use of your expertise or time. Time is money. And then also looking at where work moves across systems or you're copying and pasting. I have been using a machete to spreadsheets my entire career. And I always look for the spreadsheet mess in the middle because that's where really good work can be done. And spreadsheets are amazing for a lot of things, but they're not for a lot of things. People have used them as a crutch. And so I would encourage you to think through like what would I just love to not have to do every day? And one way to think about this that I think is pretty powerful, and listening to the top researchers in the world of AI from a human perspective is right now for office workers, typical office workers, we are about 90%, 80 to 90% every day on our keyboards. Can you imagine that being reversed where you are only 10 to 20% on your keyboard? And that is the future with agents, because the agents will do what you're tediously tapping away with on your keyboard and gives you more time to interact with customers, interview stakeholders, or do the business of human to human.
So elaborate on that. When you say that, I think of, and I'm not a Star Trek fan, but I think of Star Trek where they would say, "Computer, do this for
Yes,
me."
exactly.
Is that what you're thinking?
It's exactly that. And most of the time right now, this is already happening with some business owners where they just use their phone, they talk to their GPT. So they're just using the microphone capability. You talk to your GPT, COO assistant and say, hey, we've got this deal. Can you write up a draft summary for me and email it to my inbox? And all that happens without you having to touch a keyboard. And
You
so
know,
those,
oh, I was just going to say that's especially timely. Several of us at EXP went through training recently on building AI agents, and one of our exercises in that course was very close to what you just described. Imagine a law
yeah,
firm, they review contracts come in and they have deadlines associated with them. Attorneys
yeah,
spend a lot of time summarizing the contract, or paralegals do the
exactly.
same. Sometimes important deadlines and important dates are missed because
Yeah.
the attorney doesn't see it. And so the exercise was write an agent that can view incoming email, identify which ones have contracts that are PDFs associated with it, review those
Mm-hmm.
contracts, identify
Mm-hmm.
deadlines, summarize. And then there's still a human in the loop, though you don't want ChatGPT giving legal advice,
Yeah.
but it can do a lot of the grunt work, a lot of for example, researching what is, and I'm not an attorney, obviously,
Yeah.
but what is relevant precedent? What should we be concerned about?
Right.
What does Washington state law say on this matter, et cetera, et cetera?
Accelerating. I love that. Accelerating the research. I mean, that's a lot with the AEC world in permitting and compliance and just serving up a lot of the research. That doesn't mean a human doesn't scan to say they missed some important information, but you're at least not doing all of the heavy lifting. And that's key. Yeah.
How do organizations stop from reinventing the wheel? Because I'm thinking of our prep conversation, and I mentioned, boy, AI seems like it'd be great for project planning for AEC or project management for
Yeah.
AEC firms. And you remember your response?
No, I
Maybe.
don't know, but
Oh.
I mean, I'll rip on it
So
regardless.
I was
Yeah.
describing a scenario where let's say we have a project and there's a delay, and concrete work
Oh,
can't be
yes.
done, and there's a 3-day delay in that, and that throws a wrench into our entire project plan because there are all these dependent activities,
Right.
and those get shuffled. And how do we reprioritize to other activities that could be done independent of that concrete foundation being poured?
Right.
And do you remember
Yeah.
now?
Well, and I mean, there are beautiful solutions like Kaya AI that help us solve that problem with the middle between your scheduling software and your procurement and your materials and your crews. And so, and whether or not it's it's a specific tool, those solutions already exist on the market today that are trained in construction terminology, construction world documentation. But more importantly, you would never, I know no superintendent that will just let it ride and like let a system or an agent change my schedule. That is forbidden. So of course there's a moment where it stops. The AI can make the recommendation, and then the human says yes or no or reroute. And so you have to keep that control in there, because there are certain things I don't think we're ready to let AI do. We're not ready as a society to let AI fly a plane. It might be possible, but we're not ready, right, to accept that. There's a trust that has to be built. And so I think that's part of the journey we're on.
Yes, yeah, and it seems like this is a recurring theme of a human in the loop or an expert in the loop to
Yeah.
validate. And so you're the process then to make sure that you're not buying something or inventing something that's already been built is
Yes. Well, first of all, I would start with, before you even think you need to hire somebody or you're drowning, right? And I'm like, if I just had an assistant, I mean, you can go and create a lot, for more straightforward things. You can create your own GPT in that space to say, just assist me. And you give it instructions. And I even have ChatGPT help me write the instructions. Like, you're a world-renowned COO or trained financial analyst. You do these things. And I think of the opportunities in the construction world with the WIP and the work in progress schedule and the spreadsheet that is used by the financial analysts and the CFO and the teams. That's just a lot is writing on this spreadsheet. And I think that, what has become a system of record or an independent tool, and then we've got software as a service that is our system of record, like your QuickBooks or your ERP systems. What now is emerging is a system of intelligence above that, and that's why I've joined forces with Rapid Canvas, because it's elevating this whole process of how we think. But I would start with, before you hire anyone or think you can't do anymore alone, what would help you or assist you? What would you do next? And then you're looking for that functional area of expertise. It can be off the shelf tool that has AI. It can be something you build, or it can be something you build with a partner.
great. Yeah, that's great advice. And I'm going to put you on the spot. It's okay if you don't have an answer to this, because I know a lot of the projects that you work on, you can't talk about specifically. But maybe you could speak at a high level. Can you talk about, and again, within the context of our audience is mostly their operations and executives
Yep.
at small businesses, but can you speak to like any examples of projects that had really high ROI where there was an AI
Mhm.
implementation in an organization that goes beyond just, oh, we gave everybody Chat GPT and look at how that
Oh,
amplified their efforts, but something maybe more
yeah.
broader in scale. Uh, can you
Yeah.
speak to
Yeah.
any of those things?
A very common one that we see
Mhm.
across every industry is a process where you are ingesting emails, a lot of PDF documents, you're reviewing documents, you're reading a lot of material, you're scouring or you're going to certain sites that you have a login to get information from, to collect and collate a report. For example, this is one of the number one things, is like the reports that we produce for our CFO or for our board. Um, a lot of that can be done with agentic AI that has specific tasks and instructions to go create, gather and take the emails and be smart about, even drafting responses that go into a queue for a human to review before they would send and be edited a little bit, because you got to put your little sparkle on everything you send out. But a lot of it is the collation of emails, documents, spreadsheets into a platform that then can create the report. If you're doing any copying and pasting, it's amazing. We have high powered attorneys, financial analysts, stockbrokers, realtor investments, real estate investors doing a lot of copying and pasting. And that is a key sign or key indicator of what's possible to have AI assist with. And it greatly reduces the timed hours of those doing that work. And then create space for capacity. So that's where I say, like, before you go hire someone, if you even can create more capacity for yourself, and this was in a recent study also, that some of the savings we are finding is not that does not end up on a company's balance sheet. And that's really hard right now from our productivity minded society and CFOs to absorb. But where the time is going, back with families, personal time, the time you were tilting over in the first place.
Yeah, you see me smiling there because I'm thinking, yeah, great. Personal time
Right.
and those other gains. At the same time, I'm going to offer a counter to that, and maybe I should phrase it in the form of a question. But what are your thoughts about the next generation? And we're talking a lot about expert in the loop, but there's also a need for human apprenticeships and
Yes.
humans to go through that process, or if not, we will have a generation 20, 30 years down the road where there aren't any real engineers and accountants and architects and people that
Right.
have that specialized subject matter expertise. Do you agree? Can you speak to that? Or do you have any guidance for people in attendance as to how to keep that in mind too, or weigh those benefits and costs?
This is a real fresh topic for me with a senior in high school and two more behind him.
Oh yeah,
So, yes, because they're like, what should I major in? I'm like, humanities and things that are human, but also it's like, I think back to the calculator. When the calculator came in, it was forbidden in classrooms. It was forbidden. Everybody thought it was going to take over accounting. And now we've seen, then the expansion into spreadsheets and elevated analysis and accounting and finance professionals doing higher value activities than doing the calculations on a calculator. And so thinking about that just as a small context to we are going to work differently, but there's still learning, and there's opportunity to also capture things we've never before been able to capture, like our parents and grandparents' memories and stories and superintendents' craft and techniques and things before a whole generation starts to retire that we can capture and bottle up and then create interactive training with new people onboarding and have a much more flourishing experience than a dry training manual.
right. Well, that gets me thinking back to my childhood, and I mentioned this the other day, but my grandfather died when I was around 12 or so, and he was an immigrant from Italy, and like many from his generation, he came here very early in the 20th century. Um, didn't have great English skills even at 92 years old. And
Yeah.
so we couldn't communicate very clearly. But, AI is a great translator and interpreter
Yes.
and a great resource to, maybe I'm getting too personal here, but a great resource to offer prompts to humans that could facilitate that kind
Yeah.
of conversation too about how
Yeah.
do we capture the things that are important with the people that are important to us.
Well,
Um,
it's really
oh, go
practical
ahead.
too, real quick, is even in, safety meetings and commercial construction are vital. And there are a lot of languages represented in the Pacific Northwest. We've got Russian and Spanish and all sorts of dialects. And so tools like, Google Translate and Wordly are key to a global audience.
Yeah, and this gets back to a question that came in, and that's and I don't know if you have a specific answer. It might be one that EXP needs to research for a specific case, but is there a secure note-taking AI? There are privacy policies sometimes that say for one, you don't might not know where those notes are
Yeah.
saved. And sometimes there are privacy policies that say we can train on your data or we can use your
Yeah.
video. Do
You
you have
need to
any?
look at those. Yeah, look at
Go
those
ahead.
policies. I mean, yes, I mean, the Otter AI, the Fireflies, the Tactic, and Gemini doing it now. And, so that's part of figuring out your company policies and based on industry, compliance, regulation. That's all a good conversation to have.
So what we can say though is there are some things definitely not to do, right? Don't share
Yes.
company information in the free versions of
No.
AI products.
Right.
Generally, this goes back to an earlier question. I generally feel like Copilot is a little bit more secure because it exists if you're using the For Work tab and you're using the
Yes.
paid version of Copilot,
Yes.
you're operating in an environment that has some access controls built around it. Would you agree? I mean, I'm saying this
Yes.
as somebody that has kind of a high level understanding, but you're a CIO. Would you agree with that, with those
I mean,
statements?
that would be a logical starting point. And although I wouldn't want it to provide a false sense of security, that you still have to behave correctly and not just send data everywhere. And you have to have access controls, and that's part of cybersecurity training 101, right? We have to make sure that, not everybody in the company is seeing payroll information, for example, or HR information. So,
Right, right. And speaking of cybersecurity 101, we do have a security awareness training course at EXP Academy as well. Um, we're running short on time. We're not done
yes,
yet, but if people have questions, you want to submit them now. But I have one for you too that's kind of a wrapping up sort of question. Is there an AI related shift that businesses are not preparing for right now, but they should be? Is there something on the horizon? Is there a tree in the middle of the road or a boulder or a bridge that's out, or maybe something wonderful that people are not preparing for that they should be?
I am really nervous for business owners right now because I think you need to get on board and learn how and figure out what you need to get the trust in the tools or the technology, because it is happening. It is like we cannot make a better BlackBerry keyboard. We have emerged to the smartphone, and that paradigm shift is a fraction of what we're going through right now with AI. And I'm nervous for people falling behind. So I think I would encourage everyone to jump on board. I think the agentic AI space is the future. And I think it is an opportunity for us to reimagine how we do work. And it is vital and important that we reconsider how we are spending our time as humans.
Awesome. And I'm going to pose one more at you. So this CEO at a small business, if you could tell them one thing to do in the next 90 days, what
Mm.
in their AI adoption journey, what would that be?
I would say create your own virtual assistant with a GPT and start collaborating with AI.
Okay, great. So Jenny, we're up against time. I feel like this could have gone on for another hour. I feel like we're barely
Yes,
scratching the surface here. Perhaps we'll have you back and dive into some of these topics
sure.
in depth later on. Um, for people that want to connect with you or follow you, where can they find you?
Yes, thank you. I think Jenny Moshea on LinkedIn is a great place to start. We can connect there and take it from there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And I will also say for folks that want to connect with us at EXP, most of the people in attendance are currently clients, but those that are not, you can find us at exptechnical.com. I'm Kelly at exptechnical.com. You can email me directly. We will be sending a link to this video in about a week, so you can review that then. And I see 12:59 on my clock, so I think that's about the moment to call it here. Jenny, thank you
Yes,
so much for
thank
joining us
you.
today. I really enjoyed the conversation. You made it
So
fun
fun.
and interesting.
Yeah, cheers.
All right, go Mariners.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.